like I said, this page is going to be discussing my journey to success, the path I'm choosing, the things I'm doing and learning, and that way I can show you guys. So that way, if you want to do it or follow that, you can, or if not, and you have your own ways, you can definitely share it, and we can discuss it and bounce ideas off of each other. But yeah, so pretty much a rundown of kind of where I am right now. Like I said, my goal in this whole video is to kind of take you guys along the path of me getting to the point of financial freedom, I guess, where um, it's not a struggle anymore. So currently, right now, I live in an apartment. It's me, my girl, three kids. Um, got a used car. It's a '07 Subaru, little beater, but it's good. It gets the job done, right? And so right now, like I said, I'm in the process of trying to find a home. We are pre-approved and everything, but we're trying to get a multifamily. So there are a few things that go along with that. There's depending on the down payments you have, there's self-sufficiency tests if you're going for like a through FHA. There's MHP, which is another program, but they require 5% down. But they only go up to three families. Again, we're looking for a four, just because we're trying to get to that freedom a little faster. So that's why we're focusing on the four. So the toughest part here has been the self-sufficiency test. So what that pretty much is the rents of the home times 75% have to be able to pay the mortgage. If not, then FHA won't finance it. Now, again, MHP doesn't have that rule, but they do require 5% down, and they have income limits depending on where you live. This is all based in Massachusetts as well, guys. So I'm sure there's other programs in other places, but this is what Massachusetts has. Um, and so we also looked into the 203K process as well. That's a purchase, rehab, and then live in. Um, Again, all these are owner occupied types of options, first time home buyer options as well. Um, and again, so with that, it's self sufficiency of the entire loan, right? So it's not just like what you buy the house for, it's the purchase, the rehab, um, all put together, and that 75% of the rents have to equal that mortgage. Um, and so the main problem we've been finding with this was uh, Massachusetts, especially, is that people bought these homes a few years ago for about half of what they're trying to sell them for now. And that's what the rents are reflecting, right? So most of these homes just don't pass the self-sufficiency test if you're looking for an FHA type of financing. Um, and so the main issue is you need to either have the property completely vacant, so that way they can base the future rents off of the market, which is much higher, or in one case, in a home that we're looking at now, the rents are close enough to market rent, where they're able to adjust it just to market value, because it's only a couple $100. Um, but that has been the biggest issue as far as that. So I again, MHP doesn't require that. So that's if you have the 5% and you're only looking for a three or less, that's probably the better way to go, especially in states where the selling price is extremely high. It's a seller's market, and everything is pretty much selling in like a week or less. Um, but again, if not, the process is just a little more stringent, and you have to just know what you're getting into, right? So again, it's the market rent, if the units are empty. If not, they go based off of what the current tenants are paying, and that again has been our biggest issue because you go to places where they're paying $800 for a three-bedroom, and the market rent's 1,800. So so the home is listed for a 1,800 market, $1,800 rent for 3, 4 units, but they're only charging $800. So then there's that gap, and that's where the main issue is. But it's definitely a process that is good. We're learning a lot. We also tried NACA. NACA is a no money down home buyers program, but it is a little more difficult if you're trying to buy a multifamily as well. They want to do payment shock. So whatever your mortgage is currently or your rent, and then you have to save the difference from what that mortgage is now or your rent is now to what it is going to be in the future. And so the difficult part with that with multifamilies is obviously if you're going to be paying like $4 or $5,000 for a mortgage, you have to save like 2 or 3 grand, depending on your rent right now, maybe more, to cover that gap. And it has to be consistent every single month. If you miss 1 month or you're a little short 1 month, the process starts over. So it's just a little bit more of a hassle if you're trying to buy a multifamily. Um, threes and fours really. Duplexes, again, I'm sure it's an easier process, but also FHA and MHP. None of those use self-sufficiency tests for duplexes. So that's another thing to keep in mind because if you're planning on doing something a little smaller, that's an easier route to go as well. All right, guys. So another thing that we've come across in this process that was a little bit difficult, right? So one of the reasons we got into 203Ks was a lot of these multifamilies have old knob and tube wiring, or the plumbing's not up to code, or just different things that needed to be addressed. So 203Ks were one of the options we were looking for. But again, it was just the biggest difference or difficulty is finding properties that are completely vacant because if you're planning on a purchase and rehab, it's usually going to go way up as far as the cost or significantly, and then the market rents again aren't or what the current tenants are paying aren't sufficient to pass that self-sufficiency test. Um, but and then so another predicament we came across. There's not too many of them out here in Massachusetts, but what in a home we're actually putting in an offer on now, it is two homes on the same property, right? So the front and the back. There's a two family in the front, two family in the back. They're on the same lot though, same title, same deed. And we found a few insurance companies weren't going to cover that because it was two separate units, pretty much two separate buildings. Um, so they were trying to tell us that we needed two separate insurances, one for an owner occupied and then the other for an investment property. But it doesn't really make sense because it's on the same lot. But we were able to find an insurance company or a few, not necessarily insurance companies, but I feel like it was more just the underwriting process, right? To correctly bundle that together to where it makes sense, right? Because again, it is an owner occupied home, it's not an investment property, and it is on the same deed, same title. Now, if it was two separate lots, right? If it was the front house was unit 5 and the back was unit 7, or vice versa, whatever, then two insurances would probably be necessary. But where they are the same on the same lot, same title, same deed, everything is all in one. um, we were able to again find insurance companies that are willing to cover it, um, and actually at a decent rate as well. The other thing with FHAs as well is they are a little more uh, tighter as far as their guidelines as a property, as far as what a property needs to be able to pass. So like wood siding with paint on it. If the paint's peeling, it won't pass. Um, Again, just little meticulous things like that. Knob and tube wiring usually won't pass, or it's a little bit more difficult. Just different things, right? So they are a little bit more specific as far as, or a little more strict as far as the guidelines as to what a property needs to pass the just regular FHA guidelines. So that's again another reason we looked into the 203Ks. We were finding a lot of properties with knob and tube, or like asbestos wrap around the plumbing, things like that. Little things that just needed to be updated, or siding, paint peeling, just things, minor things that were going to keep a property from passing a regular FHA loan. That's another reason we looked into the 203Ks. So again, it does just all depend on specifically what you guys are looking at, the circumstances or the house that you find that you have an interest in, and what needs to be done as far as making that deal happen for you. Um, but so just a quick recap. So with FHAs, you have self-sufficiency tests, or the stricter guidelines as far as what a property needs in order to pass. Um, And then with MHP, you don't have those guidelines as strict as FHA, but you do need 5% down and they stop at a three family, right? And then you have NACA, that's stricter as far as just the income that you have to be able to pay your mortgage, right? They're more focused on the amount of money that you have in order to be able to pay for a property. So they don't care about credit, things like that. They want to make sure you have the money to be able to pay for the property, um, and make sure you're making that on a consistent basis. Um, but again, none of these require self-sufficiency tests for duplex. Um, FHA, if you do buy a multifamily and the rents are close enough, then they can adjust it to market rent. If not, they will go based off of what the current tenant is paying, unless you get the property vacant, or you can get like 2 units vacant, things like that. Whatever you need to adjust it, base it off of current market as opposed to current tenant payments, which is again the biggest difficulty we've had as far as finding a four family out here in Massachusetts. Um, Again, aside from that, guys, if you need any help, any tips, things like that, please reach out, and we can try to make this work. Have a good one.